Militarily Speaking, episode 74, Ashley Gutermuth.
This episode, we talk with Ashley Gutermuth, military spouse and comedian.
Welcome to Militarily Speaking, brought to you by Armed Forces Bank. This is Tom McLean and Jodi Vickery. I'm the comedian and the military retail executive for Armed Forces Bank, and Jodi is pretty solemn, and she's the executive vice president, director of consumer banking. Well, I call you chief. Can I call you chief digital officer?
You could.
That's like official. So let's congratulate Jodi, Ash, because she just got promoted.
Jodi, I'm not used to responding to that yet. So funny story. I saw in a thing this week, somebody had used the acronym CDO, and I had to ask if that was me.
What else?
Because I'm not used to it yet. So yeah, it was kind of cool.
Been promoted to, and then you're
cool.
What's the promotion?
To the chief digital officer.
Chief digital officer. All right.
Yeah.
Are you getting bags of cash? This is a bag after all.
We definitely need to leave that in the podcast.
Give Jodi more money.
Yes, when we post this, we need to block my boss from seeing it. So yeah, we didn't get in trouble here.
We'll have to come up with what CDO really means.
Right. Yeah. There's an alternative meeting. But anyway, we digress. Welcome to our show. We're excited to have you listening and learning all about our guest, Ashley Gutermuth. But first, I want to tell our audience a little bit about you. So bear with us. Tom's going to try and not fangirl through the whole thing.
What is that?
And ask you to fangirl. You don't know that? I'll tell you later.
Ashley, what's fangirl?
You're just in love. You're just in love. It's like, I don't know. Who else would you feel this way about? Rod Stewart? You might fangirl over Rod Stewart.
You don't have, well, you don't have Jerry Seinfeld's number, do you?
See, no? He's going to ask you for contacts.
I'm going to ask you for Jimmy Fallon. I'm going to ask you for all these contacts, or at least
can't help himself.
People don't know this, but Jerry Seinfeld's actually my husband. That's why I never show him. I don't want my career to be.
That's really Bruce is really his cat.
Bruce is really his cat.
So I'm going to legit tell people real things about Ash real quick. She's described by the New York Times as a quote unquote comedian. So I'm not sure if this is in quotes for a reason. We'll find out in the next hour. Ashley is a stand-up comedian, podcast host. So she's going to bust us out today.
Her.
Yeah. And actor. Yeah. She appeared on The Tonight Show starring Jimmy Fallon. Yes, Tom, now where you insert fangirl.
No, it's coming.
Where Jerry Seinfeld selected her as the winner of the Seinfeld Challenge. She performs globally with tour stops in Japan, the UK, Germany, the Netherlands, Belgium, Turkey. Don't eat the food while you're there, apparently, because food poisoning happens in Turkey, and even Greenland. Her award-winning Edinburgh Fringe show, Ashley Gutermuth, is hard to pronounce, earned a 5-star review in 2024.
Is that a real thing?
That it's hard to pronounce?
No, it's a title of something. Ashley Gutermuth is hard to pronounce. Is that the actual name?
Title. That's what I named my show.
That's pretty clever. That sounds like a Larry David, Jerry Seinfeld thing. That you would just come up with something that cool.
Thank you.
Are you jealous, Tom?
I only have 500.
Listen to this. You'll be super jealous. With over 1.7 million followers.
I've got 500 connections on LinkedIn. I think I'm cool.
Hey!
Yeah,
that is cool.
It's more than one.
You've arrived, Tom. Gutermuth regularly shares content on social media where her videos about stand-up and life as the spouse of a U.S. military service member have amassed over 800 million views. Probably like your most recent post, I'm sure.
Can you keep going?
Yeah, she can be seen on the hit show Office Joe on Amazon Prime.
There's no such thing as Office Joe.
Oh, yeah, there is. I'm in it, and I play a saucy news reporter.
I'm adding that to my list.
Tom would like a guest appearance.
Yeah,
I think we're about to find out that she has high energy. She has positive style of comedy, and it's irresistible. Her comedy is focused on the unusual relationships and observations about life. And in 2021, she won the headliner category of the U.S. Comedy Contest. When she is not performing stand-up or acting, she's usually running and has a daily running streak that spans 9 years.
I'm going to challenge that. So my understanding is you've run every day for 9 consecutive years.
Challenge accepted. And yes, it'll be 10 years in January.
That's like Forrest Gump status.
Have I ever missed a day? No. Even though I was sick, I've never missed a day. I've been hit by cars. I've fallen in 2 gopher holes. I've PCS 7 times. I've done it around the world. Have I recently not eaten for 2 days after getting food poisoning in Turkey and then had to run when I got home? Yes. Did it almost kill me? Yes.
Ashley, is it the same distance every time?
For the most part, I do 3 miles a day. For the club, which is Run Streakers International, you have to do at least a mile every day without stopping. I've done that for 10 years, but for the past several years, I've done 3 to 4 miles every day. I've done a little bit over more than a marathon, but for the most part, I stick to 3.
I got tired just hearing that.
What's the Guinness Book of World Records for most consecutive days running?
Well, I'm actually kind of a baby in the group. There's people that have done it for over 50 years.
Oh my gosh.
There's a woman that has a streak nearly the same length as mine, and she had a baby and had a C-section. So can you imagine?
No.
Yeah. And which means she had to run that same day. Doctors do not advise that.
She must have been like running around the hospital.
Yeah. Well, some do that. Yeah.
Yeah. I'd have to put my like Garmin or something on my dog and count that and let the dog run around and give me credit.
Yeah. I should do that. I put it on the cat, but he doesn't
put it on Bruce. Yeah. Put it on Bruce. Yeah. Anyway, welcome, Ashley. It's an honor to have you on our show. I think we're going to have a good time today. Thank you for being with us, first and foremost, and appreciate the time. And maybe just to kick us off, tell our audience a little bit about you and your life, fellow military spouse. Thank you for your service and that of your husband, and life as military spouse and comedian. And Tom's looking at me like he's just dying to add to the question.
Let me take this one for her.
Okay.
Oh, he's got it.
By the way, your connections to the military, you got husband, Air Force reservist, right?
Yep. Full-time Air Force reservist. Yeah.
Grandfather, Marine.
Yes.
Father, Army.
Yep.
Son, Navy.
Yep. I'm surrounded.
How about the Coast Guard and Space Force? Do you feel like you're not complete?
Well, I do. I was considering, I talked to my husband. I said, should I get divorced so I can marry somebody in the Space Force? And he said, that doesn't exist. So there's no point. But posties, yeah. And they're such good swimmers. So
I hope so. You could do triathlons then instead of just run every day.
Yeah. Now you're thinking, Jodi.
Anyway, I'd love for you to tell us a little bit of background about you, something we wouldn't know about you in your bio.
Oh, something you wouldn't know about me. Oh,
feel free to filter as needed.
It does feel like is there anything left? I was thinking today, do I have any secrets? And I don't think I do, because I can't keep my mouth shut for more than 10 seconds. Yes, I lived all over the place. My dad was in the Army, but he got out shortly after I was born. But he was in a variety of the Army. I think he was active duty, reservist, National Guard. He jumped all around as he would get fired at one place, and then he'd have to join another branch. But he sent the Marines to recruit me. He sent them to the house at one point. I'm not smart enough or capable enough to be a Marine. I have crayons that I'm holding right now. And I talked at a Marine ball once, and it was wonderful. Marine ball, if you've never experienced it, you have to go. It does not compare to any other military ball. But on stage, I had them all eat. I said, does anybody want to eat crayons with me? And they all did. They did. Unfortunately, if you ever eat a crayon, first of all, do not offer a Marine a non-Crayola. They will throw it back at you, as they should. You need name brand. What I chose was red. I chose the red crayon to eat, and that was a mistake, because then for the next week, I was on mommy forums saying things like, oh my God, why is everything red? Am I dying? Turns out there's just dyes in it. So it's like, you just think you're dying, but it's not.
Yeah.
So that's what it's like.
Internal bleeding.
Internal bleeding. I'm sure that's what Armed Forces Bank is looking for.
Yeah, definitely.
In a conversation.
Ash, there's some.
Oh, I'm left-handed.
What Jodi forgot to say was you were 2024 Spouse of the Year for U.S. Veterans Magazine. Is that right?
Well,
and the 2023 Armed Forces Insurance Air Force Spouse of the Year.
Veterans Magazine was kind enough to put me on the cover, me with my chainsaw and my dress. And
that picture comes up a lot. If you Google Ashley, you'll see a lot of stuff come up when you Google Ashley. But yeah, that picture it's a cool image.
Yeah, I like it. That was the photographer didn't know I was showing up with a chainsaw. Jack Sadie in New Jersey. He's done all my pictures, and I showed up with a chainsaw, and he was like, "Is there gas in that? Like, what are we doing here?" It's like, let's just roll with it. But that was really fun. I gotta get an updated one. I don't know what next, like me and a bulldozer, or where does it go from there? But
I think, heavy farm machinery makes sense.
Heavy farm machinery.
Yeah.
So I can move on.
You can.
So we're going to give credit where credit is due, right? That Monica Bassett, we'll put a plug in for her. And I appreciate what you do with Monica too, for tackling food insecurity. That's a problematic over the globe. And so thank you for that. She was the one that introduced me to you, and she stalked you as much as I tried to stalk you. So talk about your travel schedule. I know Renee's with us today. Renee Fairchild, by the way, is with us today. That your tour, how many, you went to I heard you went to 14 countries. Is that right? Over the course of just this year or the last couple of years?
I think this year I did 12. And can I tell you that 12 is too many? It's too many to do in 1 year. And, I just some fun travel facts. You don't get as many stamps as you used to. There's a lot. You don't get your passport stamps in as many places. So that's not very exciting. But yes, where did I go? I went to Japan. I went to England, the Netherlands, Belgium, Germany, Scotland, Greenland, Alaska. I know Alaska is not another country, but it's considered that.
It's kind of far away.
It's considered CONUS for what I did. And then we just recently went to Spain, Italy, Portugal, the Azores, which is part of Portugal. I now know. This is how I learn geography, is they take me around the world. It was really neat to see all of those different places. And what I did was I petted the cats and the dogs in all the places. And that was basically my whole trip, was just me with cats. If you look at the videos.
Somebody had to take care of the cats.
Somebody had to take care of the cats.
So now that you live in New York, though, are you going to kind of set up shop there and try to be on some schedule for 2025?
Yes, for the love of God, Tom. I never want to travel again.
So just do it all in New York, maybe LA once in a while, but just New York. Yeah.
So this is what normally happens. I say I'm never traveling again, and then it turns out I'm going somewhere in like 3 days, because I got back from Turkey last week, and then I had to leave about 4 days later to go to the shows in Seattle. But I have a show I've got shows in Vermont. I've got shows in San Diego. I'm coming to the Comedy Store out there in February. I'm definitely still doing some traveling, but I'm going to limit it. I want it to be U.S. based, the United States. I love it. I know that you're kind of iffy on it, Tom. But I love the U.S.
Yeah, I was gonna coin you as the Bob Hope of the 21st century. Is that fair or not? Not yet.
I think that is fair. Didn't Bob Hope have a bunch of wives? I haven't gotten to that point yet, but here's what I want. This is my goal, actually. I have a little nefarious thing with Bob Hope. That we got the USOs, right? We have USOs that are in airports. Mm-hmm. Here's what I want to do. I want to take over. I want to have like an ASO, Ashley Service Organization, and they're going to be in airports, and you're going to be allowed to be in them regardless. If you were in the military for a year, I want you to be able, because the USO, it gets so full, they can't take you once. A lot of times, if you've retired, if you're not still in, all those different things, I want people to be able to go wherever. That's one of my goals, is to just knock out. I'm going to compete with this free charity.
Yes.
Just doing nice things. Watch this. I'll take your volunteers.
Well, that sounds like breaking news, though.
Yeah.
The ASO.
It's a hot take.
To you.
I think it'll take me 6 months.
Well,
watch out, USO.
I'm seeing a business plan. Seeing a business plan in our future. How did you even get started in comedy? Like, we talked about your military connections. Do you have comedic connections in your past, or is this just something
connections?
Is comedic a word?
By the way, can I interrupt for a second? Because that's my nature. So you grew up listening to British comedy, but I'm not talking about British comedy. I'm going to talk about Seinfeld for a second. Can we?
Of course.
Favorite Seinfeld episode? Okay.
Oh.
Or at least his cat, the other cat is here. But yeah, what favorite Seinfeld episode? And then we're going to get into your comedy.
Favorite Seinfeld episode? I don't know. It's hard for me to pick favorites off the top of my head, but I watched a lot of Seinfeld. My grandma really loved Seinfeld, and so it was always on at the house. But there's some just any of it. Do you have a favorite episode? I can't think of a favorite one.
I do. There's two of them. So thanks for asking. So remember when Kramer wanted to write a book about coffee tables?
It's coffee table book.
Yeah, and the other one was Renee knows this one pretty well. When they tried to reserve a car, and Jerry and Elaine are there, and they said, anyone can take a reservation, but can you hold the reservation?
Can you hold it?
It's a cool bit. You'll check that one out too.
You remember when Kramer invented the man's ear?
Yes. And then who was it? George's father was part of that too, right?
Yeah, he was aware. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. You take such a simple thing, which is what comedy is, taking something simple, basic, that's relatable, and all of a sudden it's a huge success. And that thing's going to live in infamy, that show.
Yeah, it's a great show.
My daughters don't like it, but I do.
Oh, my goodness.
So let's talk about
How old are they? Can you put them up for adoption?
What's the legal answer?
I think they're legal and on their own. So
I know they're 25 and 27. So
they're already out. Just write them out of the will.
25, 27, 2, 4, 6, 12. Yeah. All right. So you fired a question at her.
I did, and you interrupted me.
Oh yeah, sorry.
Yeah, no.
You remember the question?
I just want to know how you got started in this.
How did I get started? A lot of felonies, so I can't get a job in an actual regular place. I that was all. Comedy's all I ever wanted to do, and I've had a lot of other jobs. But yeah, I just didn't know how to make it happen because it seems impossible, and then you realize you just show up to open mic nights and fail a lot.
No pressure then.
No pressure.
No pressure then. Yeah.
What is, by the way, do you have any stats on how many people actually try comedy and don't make it? Because you think about like going to Nashville, all these country artists that probably just never make it, but until you get that moment.
In January, that's usually people, it's their New Year's resolution. So the open mics are more full. And by February, they're just like, oh God, you have to really, really want, there has to be something inside of you that needs to get that out. Otherwise it's too much. Especially early on, there's so much waiting around. I used to drive over an hour to put my name in a hat to get 3 minutes.
Oh, wow.
And so might not even get that 3 minutes, but you've driven all that time. So there's a lot of things like that you have to really want it. But yeah, usually people quit within the first 2 years.
Interesting stat.
Yeah, so do you have people around you that had done this, or was this?
No, my family's pretty funny though. They're all pretty into that. But I liked Eddie Izzard and a lot of British comedians. I watched a lot of Monty Python and Only Fools and Horses and some other niche type stuff.
Yeah.
Over there, but yeah.
Ash, Monty Python and the Holy Grail.
Yeah,
right. Good one, right?
The Knights of St. Nee. It's just a shrubbery. It's not I'll show you a shrubbery.
I like when they make the horse clapping noises. Yeah.
Oh yeah, with the coconut.
So is that what I'm going to hear out of your office for the rest of the afternoon?
Yeah. All day.
And then the limbs were,
Excellent.
What a great
It's
movie.
only a flesh wound.
It's only.
Yeah.
It's almost like you watched it before you joined us today.
I did. It just came out. I'm watching it right now.
And while you're eating a Korean. Yeah. So material wise, and Renee can attest to this because she saw it firsthand, but do you kind of have your baseline material when you go on a gig or when you go to a comedy shop that this is my material, or do you probably stay pretty current and you like to stay relevant? So
I like to stay relevant. Thank you, Tom.
I know. Do you test it out with anybody?
Yeah. There's a lot of testing. It's constant testing. That what I like to do though is try to talk for as long as I can without getting into something that I've prepared, and to be in the moment. So in Seattle, I talked about things that had happened. Somebody tried to charge me 8 cents for a bag, and I found that to be ridiculous.
Wow.
Especially because she didn't ask before. It was a grocery store in Seattle. It's all 8 cents, and which is okay. You're going to charge me, fine. But she didn't wait. She waited till after I'd already paid. So then I had to go back and rescan. And I was like, this is ridiculous. And so you talk about that. You talk about different things that have happened. So I try to be like, hey, this is what I've seen in your local area. Because sometimes you'll see comedians, they just come up and they go right into whatever it is. And there's a disconnect where it's like, am I just watching a television? Is this person really here? I don't know. I like to connect more, and that makes me feel good. And then we go into things that I want to talk about, things about my life. In the case of Seattle, I did, for the most part, the show that I did in Scotland, which runs through a theme of my family life, of me trying to help people feel like they feel like they have a crazy family, but then I try to tell them about my life, and they're like, oh,
you win. You win. Well, I'm a little curious. So as
here come the good questions.
No,
this is a really good question.
Well, thank you, Tom.
You're welcome,
Ever
Jodi.
pay me compliments. No, I'm just curious. So as a military spouse, I know when I was newly married, we had a young baby, there were a lot of really unfunny things that I felt at the time were not at all funny going on in my life.
Yeah.
And so if there are other spouses out there that are maybe in that part of military spouse life and learning how to adapt, and I mean, what advice do you give? How did you figure out how to find the funny in it? Because most of the time you can usually find some light or some humor or something if you're willing to look for it. But I know, there were plenty of days when, the husband didn't come home, couldn't tell you when he was going to come home, little information, baby screaming. There is nothing funny about that in the moment.
Yeah. You're trying to deal with it all. They're
kind of a serious question, but yeah.
Yeah, you know what? There's a really good book, and it's obviously nowhere near compared, but there's a book called Man's Search for Meaning. And it talks about, there's a psychiatrist who was in the Holocaust, and he talks about how much humor was used when he was he got out, but he talked about how it was in the concentration camps, how important that is. And I often think about the different hard things in our life. Like that was such a horrific thing to have happened to them, and to them still be laughing. And that's what kept them going. Right. Is huge. So in the case of, obviously nowhere near that, but people that experience hard things, anytime that you can make a joke about it, even if you're just sarcastic, it's probably going to make you feel a bit better. Now, for me, definitely a lot of hard stuff, military spouse wise. I didn't have a whole ton of friends. Like, a lot of us don't, because you're moving so much. And I would have moments where I was trying to be friendly or polite, and something that I did was misconstrued in some way. And that's when like the hierarchy of military life came out. You know how it's weird. It's like, oh, well, your husband or wife has this job. Yep. So therefore I am this. And people pretend like it doesn't exist until it does. And I remember that happening at one point and I was just like, oh, I'm done with this. I'm going to scorch earth this puppy. And then I did. I spent years doing that because I like to see everybody as an individual. But when some of that stuff happens, it's very upsetting. And when it's perpetuated, like my husband's retired now. He was a commander for the last 8 years, which is what led to me to say some things, but not other things. I was always a bit careful because he had a big boy job. He's in charge of a lot of people and they rely on him for things. So I didn't want to do any of that. So I never showed him, never talked about what he did, any of that stuff. But you can still, in that, find ways to just screw with the establishment. I think that's what...
In a nutshell, that's what we're trying to say.
In a nutshell, screw with it to make change. And this is something, I used to have a keynote speech that I would talk about food insecurity. And what bothers me is that when things don't, I have no patience. So it bothers me when things don't get better quickly. And it bothers me when we just talk about something and nothing's ever going to change. So like Congress knows about the food insecurity piece. They're too embarrassed by it. So therefore they don't do anything. That's literally what I've been told. And so you go, okay, well, then how do I create the bigger the fire that you can create, then they have to come and put you out. So that's what I tried to do over time.
Hey everyone, if you're looking for a little extra financial flexibility to take the family on a vacation, tackle that home renovation, or just get through the ups and downs of military life, we've got some great news for our military listeners.
Absolutely. Armed Forces Bank offers access loans that are perfect for handling life's unexpected expenses, consolidating debt, or even making that big purchase you've been thinking about. And with our fast approval process, you can get the funds you need quickly and easily without all the hassle.
At Armed Forces Bank, about 75% of our team is affiliated with the military, so we understand your unique needs. We've been supporting military families for over 100 years, and we're here to help you take control of your finances.
Whether you're active duty, a veteran, or a reservist, we're committed to offering you flexible terms and competitive rates, making sure you get a loan that fits your life.
So if you're ready to take that next step, head over to afbank.com or visit a branch near you. Armed Forces Bank, serving those who serve.
Member FDIC, subject to credit approval. Origination fee applies. Direct deposit relationship required. Loan terms are based on loan amount. But Ash, you're also doing that with, like, you were talking about judges, attorneys, or teachers or nurses, right? With all the PCS moves and how military spouse unemployment rates like 22, 24%. And
super high.
You're advocating for trying to give a better life to the spouses. Beside being a comedian and a spouse, you're actually doing a lot of great work too, philanthropically, but also just trying to advocate on behalf of what they're doing for our country.
I do try because it's ridiculous. They have to have you. Why do we make people re-license per state? Well, the reason is because it makes money for the state. Okay, well then if your job says that you have to move every 2 years, and now all of a sudden you've got lawyers and like one that passed the bar 5 times in different states. And you've got people that are nurses that already don't make enough money and teachers that don't make enough money. And then if they get, there's like some universal license that teachers can get. And I remember talking to this colonel's, this colonel comes up to me and he said, my wife has this universal license. He said, and because she's got the universal license, they won't hire her because they say that she could just leave and go anywhere. And I'm like, oh my gosh.
The ultimate circular reference. Yeah.
Oh,
Jeez.
not fair.
We always talk about our percentage. We have close to 80% of the people that work in our banking centers are like at JBLM where you were or other locations that have a military connection, either a dependent, a spouse, a veteran. So we're proud of that. And so we understand, I'll say people betterment business, Renee, just for the heck of it. But we know that they're going to leave us in a couple of years, but we also know that they understand our clients. They understand what it's like to be in the military. They understand the lifestyle and understand their needs, financial services or otherwise. So we take pride in that. And so what you do on the periphery or in DC or in New York or wherever you go, just keep carrying that message for us. Thank you for that.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, now switching gears to hecklers like Jodi and others.
I don't know about that.
Renee, were there any hecklers in Seattle area when she was at the comedy club? No?
No.
Except for the people that didn't have a good relationship behind you. But yeah, so when you don't have any hecklers, but Monica was, and I ought to say the Stronghold Food Pantry, because I mentioned Monica Bass's name, but our audience doesn't know what great work Stronghold's doing in a lot of Army installations and hopefully beyond down the road.
Oh yeah, we've gone worldwide. I took them to Japan. We went overseas I take commissary gift cards from Stronghold, and then I find people. I'll talk to people before the show, and I'll say, well, actually, what I'm like in Alaska, people were lined up, and I walked down and I said, who has the most kids? And I found out who had the most kids, and I gave them $50 gift cards.
So you can talk hecklers, but I doubt it. I mean, you're maybe 10 years from now, you'll have 10 times as many hecklers, but when it comes to like the pre-rituals, routines, anything, or you just you show up and you're just ready for prime time?
Okay, well, this is twofold. One, are there hecklers? Yeah, but it doesn't. So when I'm talking, it doesn't really come across. The way people think of hecklers is people are like shouting nasty words at you, but that's not really what it is. It's usually people that think they're helping, which they never are. Or it's people that just want to be a part of it. So with mine, I don't have. Like if you go on Google and you type in comedian shuts down heckler, you won't. It's usually like just the comedian being like F off, get out, and that's not something I would ever do. What I do is I just go, oh hey, okay, and I try to they're trying to talk a little bit, so I talk to them a bit, see what we can get out of it, and then we go from there. And sometimes something good happens, sometimes it doesn't, but I try to be nice. Second answer, you asked me if I have any pre-show rituals to get ready to be on stage, or if I just go up on there. And I want you to know that I'm basically a motionless, hollow void inside. So no.
I know. I work with Jodi all day. I know. Yeah. I understand that.
Oh, when she described hecklers, I thought of you. I mean, I know people that think they're helping, but they're not.
Yes. Get yourself on stage.
Yeah. There goes my self-esteem.
You're welcome.
Self-esteem. No, not really. Sometimes with those we had two nights of 2 shows. So the second show started at 9:45, and I'm a little sleepy bear, so I had a Red Bull in between. that was, and then I had the one show I had a Red Bull at just beforehand, and it was too much. I got on stage and I was like, oh, my heart's gonna explode. I was like, this is the way to go. So there's a lot of that hanging out. Usually, what I like to do is hang out with the other comedians, and then we give each other grief, and then it's fun when we get up there.
Do you typically know people that are, what do you call it, headline? You're the headliner, but people that are showing up to be in front of you, do you know them in advance or not?
Yeah. Well, I brought Justin and Helen with me. And then there's other people. There are 2 guest sets. A guest set is like an unpaid spot on a comedy show. It's called a guestie. Hey, you want to come do 5 minutes? Great. The one was a guy that works at the club, and he was super awesome. So I said, hey, you want to do 5 minutes? Come on up. And the other was my friend Tony, who I used to live out of JBLM. So I know a lot of the comedians out there. So when they came to see me, I was like, hey, you want some time? And then Tony, he's in his 60s and he drives a concrete truck, Tony Ramus. And his bit was, what's in my wallet? And so he did just 5 minutes. It was funny. It was good.
Sounds like a Capital One commercial.
Yeah. Well, what's in your wallet?
By the way, we're going to talk about this at the end, but how do people find you when it comes to shows maybe in 2025? Or maybe you don't want people to find you, and maybe you don't like people. But
try to be elusive. No.
But yeah, what's the best site to go where they could see upcoming shows?
My website. AshleyGutermuth.com. I also own AshleyGuttermouth.com. So if you misspell it, it's okay.
Either way, you're going to get there.
We wanted to start the show that way too with Guttermouth, but I told Jodi she couldn't.
Yeah.
So we got back.
Yeah,
I'm on best behavior. I know. I can't help it.
Be professional, Jodi.
I'm trying. You see what I deal with though, right?
Yeah.
You see what I deal with. Yeah. I was thinking about when you were answering about how you dealt with military spouse and life and all of that.
Yeah.
It reminded me of the book my husband brought me home from. He went to some training and it was like the military wife handbook.
Yes, I give those away.
Have you seen that? Yes. And so it told me all the things that he would never think to tell me that are important when you talked about there's a hierarchy and, you got to be careful of who you say. It was like, how do you go through a receiving line? How do you do this? How do you not look?
The protocols. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right, but it's all boring.
But yet important if you screw it up.
I screwed. They used to introduce me as other colonels' wives at like formal events. That used to happen. One time, I picked up a wing commander physically. Picked him up. He's a big dude. I picked him up off the ground, and then I've done all the things that you shouldn't do. But the problem is, you have to have a personality that people go, "Oh, she doesn't mean it," and I've always had that. So.
Yeah. Is there something that you go back to, some memory that you come back to where it was like some pivot point where you're like, okay, at this point would you say something about the establishment? So where it was like, this is my turning point of craziness. And at this point it can't help but be funny. And I am going to just call it for what it is and make all the funny I can.
Yeah. I definitely was always trying to do things like that and I was trying to get into like other ways to do like comedy and be creative in some way because, like we lived in Warner Robins, Georgia for 2 years, which is the middle of nowhere. Trying to be creative and create things is, I don't know, it makes me feel really good. If I'm not creating something, then I get pretty miserable. So I think that's probably helpful to any spouses out there or military members then there's a couple of different ways to do it. There's the asap.org, the Armed Services Arts Partnership, which is free for dependents and military. And they do writing and comedy classes and things like that. But to find ways to create so that it doesn't come out in other ways. Cause like, if I don't, then I misbehave. But it's
good to have outlets. Good to have outlets. Yeah.
You know what you should do is go on America's Got Talent.
Well, I have a lot of friends that have been on America's Got Talent, and I had a producer that I was talking to a little bit. America's Got Talent, comedian-wise, we usually end up losing to a dog. And I don't know if my ego can take that.
Tom Cotter, if you know the name, right?
I know. I know Tom Cotter. I've worked with Tom Cotter and his wife.
So let me tell you about him. So he and I were fraternity brothers at Denison University. No. And he was my pledge master.
No way.
Can you imagine being hazed by that guy that loses to a dog, right?
Hey, oh my God. That's
a true story.
Funny.
I'm not making that up, Ash, because
I believe you.
Yeah.
Have you talked to him since?
No, I'm scared of him.
You should send him a visit. Him and his wife, Carrie Louise, and his brother's a colonel in the Navy, I think.
I've seen him perform twice, and I would go up to him, and he goes, "I have no idea who you are," but yet. I knew him, and I watched him lose. I was sad for him.
Tom is hilarious.
He's that kind of hilarious, the quick hilarious.
Oh yeah, he's the one-liner guy, but I think he's the best at it.
He's an angry man. Yeah, he's an angry comic.
Not in person.
No. So social media is a big deal for you because you have just a handful more followers than I do. But it's
aspirational, Tom.
Speaking of aspirational, what kind of advice would you give if someone wants to be you? Don't answer that question. If someone wants to be a comedian, any pitfalls to avoid or anything that you would give for guidance?
Well, the quickest way to get the first 10,000 followers is it's just pictures of your feet. That's how I did it.
I don't understand that whole thing either, by the way, but
Me neither, but I do get a lot of messages about it.
Is there a thing about feet?
Yeah.
I'll tell you later. Do not record that, Tom.
There's even a thing called wiki feet.
I don't know what a fangirl is or feet.
I think you should keep both of those in separate conversations.
Okay.
We'll Google it, but
Don't Google it on your work computer.
We're off the rails,
Yes.
Jodi.
Yes.
So here's what I would say. You need to post a lot to be able to get comfortable. That's what a lot of it is. People are so nervous about being whatever they want to be, figuring out who you are, whatever that means. I don't even know if I believe that's a real thing because we change so much over the course of our life. But just try to be and do whatever you want to be. Unless you're an absolutely like racist monster, and then keep that on lock. Put yourself in a bathroom and just hang out there for the rest of your life.
Might not be comedian material if all that's true.
Comedian material. Just post a lot, and then try to help somebody. Try to help them, and then if you get rebuffed, burn the establishment. That's my 3-step.
The last step in multiple things today has been burn down the establishment. I'm sensing a trend.
Might not have eaten enough today.
You should put that on your LinkedIn.
Put it on your LinkedIn. Yeah. Ashley Gutermuth.
Hashtag. Yeah.
So it is clear that you love what you do. Just listening to you, and this has been fun time. But what's the most rewarding part of what you're doing? I mean, what do you hope that the people that come and spend money to see you perform? What do you hope they walk away with?
Oh, yeah. I hope that they had a wonderful time. But you know what? You never know what is happening. So, for example, there was when I was in Turkey, I did a show, and it was Thanksgiving Day, and it was already kind of small, and it's in like a cafeteria. So there's a lot of things to contend with there. So trying to make it as best as I can. And then one guy started talking about, I asked the audience something, and that led to a soldier talking about his grandfather. And he said, my grandfather was in Vietnam, and he was a river patrol. And I'm like, what does that mean? And he starts telling this really heavy duty story, which is not conducive to comedy. Right. And he said that he joined the military to be able to become a citizen. And I said, let's give it up for that. Let's everybody clap for that. Because that's amazing. Somebody that does that. And he came up to me afterwards, and he looks like he's about to cry. And he's just like, no one has ever said that. No one has ever said thank you for him doing that.
Wow.
And obviously that was huge. And so you'll see people in the audience that are kind of like arms crossed, and they seem miserable. And then they come up to you afterwards, and they're like, I have never laughed that much in my entire life. And you're like, how? Oh my God. Because from the stage, you're looking at them like, why are you mad? Why did you pay to be mad? And then sometimes, like, I've had people, I was doing the military influencers conference, and I was giving away prizes. And one guy said I pulled his ticket, but then he was blind. And then I give things like that where people, you're like, no, he was just screwing with me. But you just never know what is happening in somebody's head, or even if they're not laughing, and then they're just like, oh my God, that was wonderful. And which is always, that's lovely, when you have things like that.
I'm not going to end this.
I think it's awesome. No, I think it's awesome because and I think that's true with what we do, even here in a banking environment. Yeah. You never know what somebody's day has involved. You never know what their perspective is, where they're coming from. And if you can be a bright spot or a helping hand, then we all do it in different ways. But yeah, that's got to feel good.
Renee couldn't stop talking about you. I had to change my phone number because she was so excited about seeing you.
Blocked Renee.
Yeah.
It's okay, Renee.
You could.
I'll forward your calls to him.
Just be nice so you can give me all these celebrity phone numbers, okay? So just be nice to her. Yeah. So the final question kind of is, if you weren't a comedian, what would you be doing today? And I know, like you said, you can't keep a job doing anything else because they'll either fire you or you'll get bored. Or
felonies too. So.
But you got felonies?
Technically, I've only almost been fired once. They said if I didn't make any sales within 2 weeks, Tom, they would fire me. And I said, well, you can't do that because I quit. I'm bad at sales.
Wait, what did you need? What widget were you selling?
I was selling interactive whiteboards to schools that were made in Pennsylvania, but I was in the middle of England. They hired me because I had an accent that they liked, and that's what they told me. And then I used to call all day. I'd call schools to try to sell these interactive whiteboards, but I did not care. Why can't kids use blackboards?
What was the per unit? What was the per unit cost?
Oh, God, I don't know. But you know what? That's not the only sales job that I failed at. I also failed at, I sold bowling alley parties for like Christmas and birthday. That was also in England at an AMF bowling that subsequently burned to the ground after I left. Not me.
You did burn the establishment.
Burned it down.
I did burn the establishment.
And then left England shortly after.
I did not. I didn't sell any birthday parties. That was the most money I've ever made, though. It was 14,000 pounds a year. And that at the time, due to the poor dollar to pound ratio, that was like almost $30,000. So, hey, for not doing any work, that's not bad.
That's the amount of Oreo. That's the amount of Oreos I eat a year too.
Girl Scout cookies.
Gross at 14,000 pounds. Yeah.
Oh my goodness. I think we talked about this a little bit earlier. I want to make sure our audience knows where to find you or any last comments that you would want to share with them. But we talked about your website, AshleyGutermuth.com. It's .com, right?
Yes.
I wrote down the first part.
Or she's on like LinkedIn, YouTube.
.com.
Yeah. Well, some people pick weird things anymore. So yeah, check her out there. I assume they can go there if they have interest in booking you at an event or reaching out for any number of hopefully good reasons.
Yes.
Very good.
We can book her here.
We could.
You could book her here. Yeah.
Have you been to Kansas City or Fort Leavenworth or no?
I did. That's where I ate the marine crayons for the Kansas City recruiting station.
Oh yeah. My husband was there.
Marines, yeah.
Yeah, my husband was with Kansas City Recruiting Battalion for a while.
Heck yeah.
See, it all comes back to Kevin Bacon, doesn't it? Every episode is Kevin Bacon. Plethora of Kevin Bacon.
I came into a town hall for the Marine spouses before the Marine Ball, and the commander then said, okay, everybody, we're just going to talk about the next few months. I want you to know, I know your spouses are working a lot, but I want you guys to know that Christmas, you're going to have Christmas off. And I was like, what is happening? Oh my God. Marine recruiters work so hard. I will bang the drum. That's going to be my new life purpose. I want everyone to know how hard Marine recruiters work.
True story, right?
It was my husband was in recruiting command for a long time. And it was back in the day before they kind of got softer and gentler in their ways. So yeah.
It is brutal.
Yeah, for sure.
Let's play a game.
It's a time.
Is it time?
Yeah. Our game?
Yeah.
Very good. We will play the Military Minute. Are you game, Ashley?
Okay. I'm up.
If Ashley knows the answer to this question from the last episode, I'm going to give her 16 cents to buy 2 bags in the Seattle area.
Yes. Call back. Nice.
Yes. Grocery shopping, as it were. So Military Minute, we ask a question after every podcast. And so last episode, we asked a question about a French artist famous for his water lilies paintings. If you know that one, you can answer. Can't answer the next question because...
Do you think Ashley knows the answer?
I don't know. Do you know any French artists that paint a lot of water lilies?
I know a lot of water lilies.
It rhymes with Chauvet. Does that help?
Chauvet?
It rhymes with...
a total made-up word.
Gauguin?
Monet?
Monet. Oh, of course, Monet. See? But him and I have a thing where we don't talk. So it's like I can't even...
So, yeah.
Water lilies.
Good job. You guessed right.
She did.
What,
yes. So
does Monet have a first name?
Claude.
Yeah.
With the E. Claude Monet. Yeah. So if you answered Claude Monet when we dropped our last podcast, watch for your name to be the one that was selected to win $50 for yourself and $50 for a charity of your choice. And then fast forward to this week's question, which you cannot answer, but you can give us the high sign if you know.
Give us acknowledgement if you know the answer to this question, okay? But don't say it out loud.
I guessed it on the 5th time, maybe.
You did,
I was like 5th time. So this week's Military Minute takes us to a question about comedy. Go figure. According to the Rolling Stone magazine, who is the best stand-up comedian of all time?
Well, I don't know. According to them, I'm not going to answer. I have thoughts.
Do you?
Well, we'll have thoughts after we stop recording.
Yeah.
You know what you should do is What was that? What were you
Don't
selling?
give a hint.
No,
Don't
you
give a
were
hint.
selling some sort of whiteboard. Do it on your invisible whiteboard or whatever that was
Do it
that
on
you
the
were
whiteboard.
selling. Yeah. Interactive whiteboards.
We'll get her guess after we hang up the recording part of this. But so if you know who, according to Rolling Stone magazine, was the best stand-up comedian of all time, when we drop this podcast, put your best guess in the comments, and you too could be selected for $50 for yourself and $50 for a charity of your choice. Don't spend it all in one place.
So if you enjoyed today's episode, go out to afbank.com and subscribe to the show. Also, make sure to rate us, leave us a comment on your favorite platform, such as Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube. Thank you, Ashley.
Yeah, this has been fun. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. It's a joy.
Copyright Armed Forces Bank, member FDIC, equal housing lender. All non-Armed Forces Bank owned apps, websites, company names, and product names are trademarks or registered trademarks of their respective owners. Their mention does not imply any affiliation with or endorsement by Armed Forces Bank of them or their products and services. They are merely used as examples of the many available apps, companies, and websites that offer similar services. Before using any app or website, you should carefully review the terms of use, data collection, and privacy policy. Apps may have an initial cost or in-application purchase features. This information is general in nature and is not intended to be legal, tax, or financial advice. Although Armed Forces Bank believes this information to be accurate, it cannot ensure that it could change. Statements or opinions of individuals referenced herein are their own, not Armed Forces Bank. Consult an appropriate professional concerning your specific situation and respective governing bodies for applicable laws, such as irs.gov for current tax law. Armed Forces Bank, the Armed Forces Bank logo, and the Militarily Speaking logo are registered trademarks of Armed Forces Bank.